Welcome back, everyone. Welcome if you are new. Um, the world is on fire. I'm sure you've noticed. Uh, you can notice something, though, and not think much of it. If it doesn't affect your immediate life and your immediate routine or your neighborhood or your community, it's easy to notice something and then discount it. And that's fine. That's life. We can only focus on so many things. Um, there are studies that suggest that people can only focus on about 7 things at a time. And life will generally keep you busy to that extent. So everything else that comes in probably gets a moment of your attention and then it's gone. Uh, that's just the world that we live in. But the world is on fire. Yes, if that's what you noticed and you were wondering if that was correct, if your perceptions were misleading you, no, the world really is on fire. And there's a reason why it's on fire. It's not an accident. It's not natural. It's not normal. It's not a cycle. It's not a pendulum. It's not any of those things. And it's probably not any of the things that almost anyone's going to tell you. The mainstream media, the politicians, the meteorologists, and even some of the climate scientists will say things about the burning. And a lot of it isn't, well, it isn't incorrect. It's just not sufficient. Because everyone is afraid of this. I'm not. I'm not afraid of anything. I'm quite happy to talk to you about what's happening to your world. And so let's do that. Orders of business. Yes. Buy my book. It was 100 days. In my book, because it's based on reality, there are fires. And there's a horrifying section where people have to deal with fire. Now, if you're living in France or Spain or Switzerland or Italy or Greece or British Columbia and Canada or in the US, Washington State, Oregon State, Colorado State, Utah State, various times, Texas, and some others. They had big fires in Minnesota spilling over from Canada. If you've been in these places, and a bunch of others that don't even make it into the news, right? Because unless you're watching Western media covering something happening in the Western Hemisphere or the Western sphere of influence, that's it. That's all you get. You're not going to hear about fires that are burning out of control in Indonesia or even Australia, for that matter. So you're getting a slice of it, and even that small slice convinces you that the world is on fire. But unless you're living in these communities, you're not actually on fire. You're just watching it from a distance. But pretty soon, everyone is going to have to deal with fire. So there's a section in my book, It Was 100 Days, where the people who survived the collapse of civilization, which for them is an ongoing phenomenon, they are enduring a polycrisis, including which fire is part of it. Everyone's going to get to experience this. The people who are surviving and living through fire right now have some advantage in that civilization has not collapsed. These fires could cause a collapse of civilization. The current polycrisis could actually do that, but so far that hasn't happened. So there are still people coming in to help fight the fires. There's still technology to fight the fires, and for better or for worse, there's reporting and reporters and the internet and video, and we can still experience the fire. So you're in the early days of the burning of the world. And maybe it's come for you, maybe it hasn't. If it has come for you, maybe you're already a refugee and you're not even watching this video because you don't have a home, or you're stuck in a refugee center escaping the fire in France or Spain or wherever else you happen to be. And you've got other things on your mind than watching YouTube. Some guy talking about fire. So, but yes, I do cover this in my book, and I tried to be as realistic as I could be. And it is the fire that comes through the community in the novel that changes how they decide to live. So that was for them a pivotal moment. It was a pivotal moment for them when the collapse of civilization really became real, and they really seriously had to change the way they lived. And I won't spoil it for you, buy the book and read, and you'll probably be amazed. You'll probably be really confused at what they do and why they have to do it. But it's all carefully thought through, and it's their only solution. Link is in the description if you're interested. So, yes, the world is on fire. And depending on who you talk to, they'll tell you, well, this fire was caused by arson. Oh, this fire was caused by someone being silly with matches. Or this fire was caused by, I just saw this today, a team of, what do you want to call them? Foresters, a forestry team, deliberately clearing brush near power lines, because if you don't do that, the power lines may spark a fire in the brush below the power lines. And so they were deliberately clearing the brush below the power lines to prevent fires. And in the process of doing that, which was a sanctioned activity overseen by the utility company, in the process of doing what they were supposed to do, they started a fire. So there you go. There's lots of ways these fires get started. A lot of the ones that are actually affecting the U.S. and Canada right now have been started by lightning. And in an ironic twist, fires, once they get big enough, can actually spawn lightning storms. So there you go. Yeah, if you wanted to think that the world is out to get you, well, now you have evidence that that's true. The fires themselves can cause lightning storms that cause more fires. Now, whatever they want to tell you about what caused these fires, I'm going to help you out a little bit. These fires, all of them, every single fire that's burning today, I'm just going to say it, every single one, 100% of the fires today are due to global heating. Now, that's a painting with a broad brush, and that's stating a lot. But here's why I can say that. There is no location on the planet, not even the poles, that is not seriously, profoundly impacted by global heating. We even have marine heat waves going on right now. I've talked about that a lot on this channel. Marine heat waves. Now, you can't have a fire on the ocean, but the heat in the ocean can influence heat on land. And that combination, along with global heating, okay, you see how this compounds and layers on top of each other, can cause conditions that are conducive to fire. And the meteorologists and the fire management people, so many countries have fire warning systems. They often come along with the other types of warnings you get, like warnings for hail or flash floods. The same organizations will then issue fire weather warnings. And we've been having those all over the country here in the U.S., like all the time. And usually huge parts of the country entirely flagged for fire weather. This has just been going on. Now, the problem is, of course, that people, even if their region has been flagged as a fire emergency, meaning if there's any fire that gets started, it's going to become an emergency instantly, so don't start any fires. Despite that going on, despite that, those warnings going out from the government, people still go out and they do the things they do, and they cause fires. And I just saw some reporting today out of British Columbia. Or was it Oregon? It doesn't matter. That of the fires they were looking at, there's like 500 fires or so that were active. Half of them were caused by lightning, and half of them were caused by humans. But all of them are caused by global heating, you see. And they won't say that. They're not going to say that. How does global heating cause a fire? The source of the spark is actually not that important. I mean, it's critical. You can't get the fire without it. But the reason why it's not important is that if conditions are not fire prone, then a lightning strike or a casual cigarette flicked into the brush won't actually cause a fire. If conditions are not conducive for the fire, then the spark doesn't cause a fire. So let's just start with that. Let's just start with that. If it's a rainy day, or if it's been rainy, if the plants are green and the soil is moist, and someone does a stupid thing with a cigarette or a match or a piece of equipment, it won't start a fire. So it's not like the spark is sufficient, and the spark won't even matter if there aren't other conditions that are being met. You can have sparks all the time, and humans make sparks all the time, and humans do stupid and even illegal things with fire and spark all the time. Every day, everywhere, all the time. Internal combustion engines spew, they're burning fuel in their cylinders, and they have catalytic converters that are hot underneath the car, hundreds, thousands of degrees. And these things can come, and we are a fire species at this point. We need fire to survive. Gasoline, diesel, burning. It's in an engine, but the engine has sparks that come out, and the engine is hot, and your engine can catch fire if you're not doing the right kind of maintenance, and the fuel gets onto the manifold, and the manifold is hot, and it sets off the fuel, and now all of a sudden you're pulling your car over off the road, and you're jumping out, and the car's on fire, and now you've just become a pyromaniac. I mean, you didn't mean to be. You were going down the road thinking you knew what you were doing, but our entire culture, our entire economy is based on fire. Everything we do is based on fire. And many times on this channel I have said something to the extent that everything you do is dependent on fossil fuels. Everything you eat, everything you drink, every piece of food that comes to your store, your lighting, the plastics, the computer, the network, the internet, everything. The clothing you're wearing, the shoes on your feet, all of it. 100% of everything, 100% of the time, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, is dependent on fossil fuels. We are a fire species. And sometimes we deliberately set fires. So it's not surprising that the world, with us in it, doing the things we do with flammable fluids, can be on fire. So there's a lot of spark out there, and we are it. And even when there's lightning going overhead, there's still 50% of the fires that are burning right now in my neck of the woods are still caused by humans. 50%. And what are they doing when they're causing fires? Who knows? But it's almost certainly something they were doing yesterday, or I should say last year, that didn't matter. They were outside smoking a cigarette, and it didn't matter a year ago that they were outside smoking a cigarette, and then they threw the cigarette on the ground and put it out with their foot, and they went back inside to continue their job. Okay, it didn't matter a year ago. Well, now that very same action, you smoking a cigarette, you put it on the ground, you stamp it out, you go inside, the wind catches it, it blows it into the brush, 3 feet away, and it wasn't completely out. A year ago, the fact that it wasn't completely out didn't matter. But this year, when the cigarette isn't completely out and it gets kicked into the grass, it sets the fucking world on fucking fire. And people don't understand that things have changed. And what is it that's changed? Is it the cigarette? Are cigarettes now burning longer after we put them out? Is it the cars? Are the cars catching on fire more often on the freeway than they used to? Is it something else? What has changed? And you'll run around and say, what has changed? The whole world is on fire. And every time somebody does anything stupid, it catches the world on fire. Those things didn't used to matter. It must be something else. It must be a conspiracy. It must be the Illuminati. It must be the Masons, right? It must be some terrible, evil creature has come along. And now it's setting fire to the world. And it's not my fault. I just threw a cigarette on the ground. And last year, and the year before, and the year before that, and when I was 14 years old, that didn't matter. I could do that. I could drop a cigarette on the ground and walk away from it. It didn't matter. Now it matters. Why? Why does it matter? Because it's Illuminati. It's HARP. It's solar radiation. It's flares. It's, whatever it is. It's wokeism. It's the immigrants. It's something. It's not me. Because me dropping a cigarette on the ground didn't start fires. And now it does. And no one asks, well, what has changed? They'll point fingers and they'll blame everybody else. They won't blame themselves. Okay? But something has changed. And what's changed? And you know what's changed. You know what I'm going to say. You know what I'm going to say. Right? You know what I'm going to say. Global heating. And you know that's true. And what is it that people are saying now? Now that we have enough data, now that we've had, since March or April to have enough data, even in our personal lives, even if we're not meteorologists and crisis managers and FEMA and the government and NOAA and all these other things, just our own individual lives, we now know that we have had something like 4 in Europe and England. This is being reported because they still talk about these things in Europe and the UK. We don't talk about these things in America because we're an authoritarian state and they're controlling information. And that's a fact. If you don't believe me, well, I don't know what to tell you. But they still talk about these things in Europe, the EU, and the UK. And what they're telling each other, reminding each other, is we've had 4 major record-breaking heat waves back to back, like 2 weeks apart. What are you doing?
No, just this stupid thing that needs to be repaired.
Okay. And of course they're wondering, well, are we going to have a 5th? Are we going to have a 6th? How many are there going to be of these things? And the answer is yes. Yeah, you are going to have 6. You're going to have 7. You're going to have 8. They're going to come every 2 weeks because that's global heating. That's what it does. Global heating heats the planet. The whole planet is being heated up. It's being heated up by the greenhouse effect, which is natural and normal, but we've enhanced it by emitting carbon dioxide into the atmosphere at rates and in quantities that haven't been seen in tens of millions of years, if not possibly hundreds of millions of years. And now that we're doing that, how are we doing that? We're doing that by burning fossil fuels. And we burn more fossil fuels, coal, oil, and natural gas now than we ever have in the history of ever. So, and every year it goes up. Every year, the amount that we burn of coal, oil, and natural gas goes up. It increases every single year. So this is a death spiral. We're in this now. We're in a death spiral. And everything's burning. The world has gotten hot enough that now the world is on fire. And the fires that are sweeping through the world were also sweeping through the world last year because of the same problem. And from here, the fires will sweep through the world for the conceivable future. And the only thing that stops the fires from sweeping over the planet because of the heat is that it runs out of fuel. I mean, let's face it. You can only burn a forest so many times. You can only burn a town to ashes so many times. You can only burn all the people, fleeing the fire so many times. And after a while, there's no trees, there's no towns, there's no people, there's nothing left to burn. And after a while, these fires stop happening. So that's good news, right? That's something to look forward to. If we burn everything on the planet, then the planet will stop burning. But that's the only reason it ever stops burning, is because the fires have burned everything that can burn. The fires have burned everything that can burn, including the people, because people burn. A lot of the fires are in the forested areas or grasslands. Some of these places don't even have roads going into them. There's really not many people in there. Some of the fires that get started in Canada are so deep into the boreal forest, which is like ancient forest. This is like dinosaur territory, right? It isn't, but you get that feeling. You get the feeling that these forests are so old and so trackless, with no roads. Anything could be living in there. Those fires are started by lightning, which is also due to global heating. Oh, and also due to the marine heat wave. So those fires are started by lightning, and they just have to let them burn. The fires that take place in the deep Canadian boreal forest, they can't fight them. And, Donald Trump will tell you, well, it's because they're not managing their forests correctly. These are boreal forests. These are forests that are 100,000 years old. These forests existed before humans showed up in the North American continent, or even the South American continent for that matter. These forests are older, not the individual trees. The forest is older than civilization before people showed up. And you can't manage them because you can't even get in there. Why would they even bother? They have forests that are burning down communities. They have forests that are burning down, farmland, cropland. So they want to fight the fires way up deep in the boreal forest. They want to fight the ones that are where there are structures, people, commercial activities, livelihoods, freeways, things like that. So they fight the ones they can fight, and they just have to let the others burn. They have to because they don't have enough people and equipment to fight the fires as they are now. And that's another sign that this is new. We can't fight these fires because we've never seen fires like this before. And you'll say, well, they're just being inefficient. They're just letting it burn because reasons, conspiracies, right? White replacement, whatever it is. They're letting it burn, and it's corruption. They took the money and they put it in their pockets and they bought second homes. Now they have to let the fires burn because corruption. Okay, no, the reason the fires are burning out of control is that some of them are being started in areas where people cannot go. So that's that. But also, there are so many fires that they don't have the resources to fight them. Period. Full stop. Now, it used to be that an area would get a big fire. Maybe it's lightning. Maybe it's someone barbecuing and knocking over the barbecue, right? Whatever. There'd be a big fire. But there'd be one. And so they would turn out with their local fire departments. And local might even be the first town over. They'd show up and they'd have their little fire truck and they spray some water, and then they get on the radio and say, "Nope, we can't handle this. We need more fire suppression." So then they bring in the big planes and they bring in more fire engines. And maybe they bring in some heavy equipment to knock dirt around, build fire lines, and they fight the fire, and it's pretty good. Okay, but it still gets out of hand. The wind comes up, or it's hot, or whatever, and it goes in a weird direction, and they couldn't contain it. Then they get on the phone again. They say, "Okay, well, this is getting serious. We've thrown everything we have at it locally and regionally. We need serious help." And so that's when, if you're in Oregon and you have a big fire and it's burning and it's threatening towns and roads and crops, well, then you call the Australians and they show up. And you call the Canadians, and they come down to Oregon, and they fight the fire. You might even get fire suppression coming in from Florida, right? All on the other side of the country. Or the EU. And, okay, in fairness, sometimes they send in people for training. And that's a good thing, because you want to be able to train with other fire suppression teams from other countries, speaking other languages, the whole thing, right? So that you have some experience on how to do that. But also, they're trying to build goodwill, because someday they're going to have a fire, whether it's in Australia or Florida or British Columbia, wherever, they're going to have a fire. And, they're going to do the best they can with it. And then when it gets out of hand, they're going to get on the phone. And they're going to say, "Hi, we have a big fire here. Do you remember when we helped you put your fire out? Yeah, I thought you might. We could use some help up here." So everyone's like, they're right. And so they would go to the new fire. Now, what's happening now, though, because of global heating, and the entire planet is primed to burn because of the heat. You see where this is going? Pay attention. Because the entire planet is primed for burning. The entire planet can burn. It can do that. And because humans are everywhere on the planet doing the stupid shit that they do with fire, including just driving their car down the road, which normally would not be a problem, suddenly it's a problem. They're not going to stop doing that. They're going to keep doing that because they don't understand that now what they're doing is a problem. It wasn't a problem before, now it's a problem. But they don't care, and they're going to keep doing what they do. Because people keep doing what they do, even though what they're doing is now a problem, but they have to keep doing it. Now the whole world is on fire. And the world is not on fire because people keep doing the things that used to not be a problem. Because people are always going to do the things that used to not be a problem. They'll even keep doing things when they know that those things are a problem. Like smoking or eating too much or drinking too much. People just keep doing the things they do even when they know those things are a problem because they can't stop doing the things that they do. People just don't stop. They don't ever change. Ever. People never change. They're incapable of changing. But the planet is capable of changing. And the planet has changed underneath us and become a different planet. is now become a planet of fire. Everything is going to burn. And the people who are running around doing the things they used to do that were just fine, the car's on fire, the cigarette, throw it on the ground, that's fire. Vacationing up in the woods and having the barbecue get knocked over by the dog, and well, that's unfortunate. Okay, all the things they used to do that never really mattered, and they were just screw-ups, or me being myself, or me doing what I always do, and I don't have to change anything, and I have freedoms. All those things that used to be fine are now going to find the world ready to burn because of global heating. And they didn't know that. And they can't change even if they know that. And they're going to do what they do, and they're going to set the world on fire. Oh, and actually, they've already done that. Now the world is burning. And if you thought that maybe the whole world was burning, you're correct. Now, there is no exit strategy for this. There's no way to stop this. Donald Trump. What a fucking moron. He's going to punish the Canadians because they had a big fire. And the smoke is coming across the border into the U.S. It's a big deal. It's a lot of smoke. I don't want to say it's not a lot of smoke. It's a ton of smoke. And now it's causing problems in the U.S. and the American citizens, because they don't understand how anything works. A bunch of dumbasses. They're complaining to the president. The president is now going to punish Canada for its forests being on fire. That's what he's going to do. And about the time he gets ready to do that, maybe he's already done that, punishing Canada because they have forest fires. Now we're having massive forest fires in Utah, Colorado, Oregon, Washington. The smoke is going everywhere. Pretty soon you won't know if the smoke you're breathing, in New York or Kentucky came from Canada or came from the U.S. And it'll just all be smoke. And you won't know where it came from. You won't understand what's happening. It's a conspiracy. It's the Illuminati. It's the HARP. It's the woke. It's the communists. It's all the things, right? It's all these things, and it's not because the Earth is primed to burn. It's never that. It's never because global heating has set the world on fire. It's never that. It's the Canadians who don't rake their boreal forest, which has no roads into it, and never has and never will. It's because the Canadians are not raking their forest and trimming the trees as if it was in their backyard. The shrubs around the swimming pool. They're not out there trimming their shrubs and raking the forest floor and hauling the leaves off and protecting the forest. It's not. That's not why it's happening. It's happening because the whole planet is now primed to burn because of global heating. Oh, you can't say that. You can't know that. Oh, the fuck, I can't. And you're going to find out, my friend. You and everybody you know, and everybody who wears a red hat, and everybody who voted a certain way, they're all going to come up to the same thing. The world is burning. And on one day you can blame the Canadians, and the next day you can blame the French, and the day after that you can blame the Germans, and they should be raking their forests and trimming their shrubs, and they should be doing all these things, and and you can blame them for not doing the thing that you think they should be doing. But what should be happening is you stop driving and flying and manufacturing and moving your goods and moving your money and having a job. You have to abandon all fossil fuel consumption immediately, with immediate effect, full stop. Which does not save you, because the current conditions where the earth is primed to burn will persist for centuries, if not millions of years. This world has been altered. It is ready to burn. It is going to burn. Everything is going to burn. People won't change. They won't stop anything that they do, because they can't. I'm absolutely convinced. People are incapable of saving themselves from this. Absolutely 100%. Top to bottom, every day of the week, incapable of saving themselves from this. And they won't. They won't. They're not, and they won't. And the whole world is going to burn. Forests burn, grasslands burn. But in addition to that, and this is what has my hair on the back of my head standing up. Cities burn. There's big fires in Spain, burning in the suburbs of Spain. So this is the outskirts. I mean Spain. I'm not Spain. I'm sorry. Madrid. Madrid is a fable city, right? Now Madrid is in history all the way back, right? Madrid has always been there. It's like London has always been there, right? London was always there. And it was always called London, or Londinium. That's what the Romans called it. And Madrid was always there. And, and Rome and all these other places. These are fabled cities. And now they're at risk of burning. These cities are made of wood. They have street trees, which is considered a good thing. They have street trees, but the buildings are also made of wood. In modern construction, old construction, they used stone for things they intended to last. But modern buildings are made of either steel and glass, if they're like commercial buildings, or a lot of homes are made out of wood. And wood burns. And you think, oh, there's nothing in this community that can burn. Everything in your community can burn if it's made out of wood. Every part of it, including you. People burn, just so you know. I mean, we don't want to think about that. We don't talk about that, but people burn just fine. We're made out of fuel, essentially. So every part of a suburb made out of wood can burn, including the vehicles. Vehicle fires are the worst thing going. Plus, the vehicles are made out of, paint, which burns, rubber, which burns, fuel tanks, which burns, batteries, which also burn, it turns out, who knew? And everything about a car can burn. And every house has 2 cars, 3. And then the house itself is made out of wood. And then the people are made out of things that burn. Everything in a suburb can burn. Every single thing. We saw this here in California with the Palisades fire. That's a wealthy suburb of North Los Angeles where all the movie stars live. And a fire came down the mountain, and it started in the brush. And okay, fine, started in the brush. But it was where the brush met a home. And so it could even be that it started in someone's backyard, got into the brush, and from there came back into the community. So where did these things really start, right? Anyway, the brush caught fire on the hillside. And then because the winds were really steep, really strong, and this was forecast, by the way, they knew there was going to be really apocalyptic winds on that occasion. And they should have basically locked down North Los Angeles. I don't know how you do that. I'll tell you how they do it these days in California. They shut off the power. It's called a PSPS, a public safety power shutoff. They just shut off your power. They will do that here in California. Because they figure, okay, if you're just going to be stupid, which you're going to be, people are going to people, and that means doing stupid shit with fire. So we're just going to shut your power off. We're going to shut your power off. You won't have traffic lights. You won't have interior lights. You won't have a way to cook. Your refrigerator will start to thaw. And all these things are going to happen, okay? And we're going to shut the power off, and your life is going to stop. And you're going to be so busy trying to save the food in your refrigerator and trying to find some way to get to a supermarket to get a gallon of water, whatever you think you're going to have to do. You're going to be so busy doing that you're not going to be doing the stupid shit you would have been doing if we left the power on. You see, PSPS, they just take away civilization these days. When we have bad fire weather, they just take away civilization. Find something else to do, chimp. Go eat a banana, okay? Because you're not doing the usual stupid shit you do. Now, on that occasion, they didn't do that. On that occasion, they lost, between several major fires that burned at that particular time, I think they lost like 21,000 structures. And quite a few people died. People were so in such a big panic to run away from it that they drove their cars into smoke and even flames, and they couldn't see. And because they don't know what to do with anything unusual, like there's smoke and there's sparks crossing the road, they don't know what to do. So they just parked the car in the middle of the street, got out of the car to run. Maybe run into a house across the street or run down the street or whatever they think they're going to do. And then they parked their cars and they Oh, all right. That's my wife leaving me love notes, so to speak. Oh, fine. I'll do it. They park their cars in the middle of the street. Okay, parking your car. What does that mean? You put the selector into park, right? You set the parking brake. You're a good driver. You know what to do. You put it in park. You turn the motor off. You set the parking brake, and they jump out of the car, and then they lock the car. Because that's what you do. Because you're a chimp, and you're going to go get a banana. And right now, you're going to lock your car because someone might get into your car and leave cooties all over inside, right? So you lock the car. And then when the fire trucks try to come up the road to put out one of the biggest fires that ever burned in L.A., what do they find? Streets full of cars, stacked across the street, deep, where everybody came to the same spot. And they all stopped, and they all parked the car, and they put it in park, and they set the parking brake, and they turned off the motor, and they got out of the car, and they locked the car, and they took the key, right? Because that's what you do when you're a chimp. And you don't understand situational awareness. And they left the cars. And then, so, in order to get the fire trucks up the mountain to fight the fire, then they had to bring in bulldozers, which they were bringing in anyway to make fire lines. They had to bring in bulldozers to bulldoze the cars out of the street. So you locked your car, you did the thing, you took the key, you did all the safe things, and when you came back to get your car, it was bulldozed into a pile along with all the others. Because people don't understand. And that's why, these days, they shut off civilization. It's a PSPS. And maybe because they shut off your power, you'll say, all right, I'm not going to stay here. The next town over, they've got power. I've got lots of money. I'm a Hollywood movie producer. I'll just get in my expensive car and I'll drive my expensive butt down to this other town. I'll get a hotel room. Okay, that's actually a better outcome than leaving civilization in place and letting these dummies figure it out on their own. You just shut off civilization. It's called a PSPS. So we do that here in California. And, people don't like it, right? It's like, tough. Your world is about to burn. There's a certain inconvenience to having your power shut off, but at least you can't chimp out and do something stupid in your backyard. All kinds of fire and sparks and all the things that you would be doing with your normal life because you don't have any power. And maybe you'll go somewhere else, or maybe you'll just stop doing things and you'll pay more attention. Maybe not. People are dumb. They do whatever they want to do. Your world is ready to burn. How do we stop that? We don't. It's all going to burn, is what's going to happen. It's all going to burn. And the demagogues will come along and they'll think, wow, this does not reflect well on me. The rulers of the free world, the rulers of the authoritarian states, which there's more of the latter these days than the former, the rulers of the authoritarian states and the people who have their image to maintain, and they have the next round of elections, and they don't want any static, they're not going to let there be a discussion about how the world is set to burn. And even when there is a fire, they're going to use it for political purposes. They're going to find someone to blame. The politics are going to be excellent. Okay? Politics are going to be great. I'm going to blame my opponents for this. And how I'm going to do it, I don't know. We're going to blame the Canadians. We're going to charge the Canadians. We're going to get money out of the Canadians. Although that's not what tariffs do, by the way. But we could do that, right? The story. We can sell the story. We're getting money out of the Canadians. Sell the story. It works for people because they don't understand how tariffs work. We're getting money from the Canadians, and also we'll invade Canada. We'll invade Canada. We'll do a better job with the forests than they did, and therefore the fires won't happen. But what nobody understands is the whole planet's going to burn. Everything on the planet is going to burn. We'll see that this summer. We'll see it next summer too, and the summer after that. The heat never goes away. The global heating is global, and it never goes away. There's nowhere for it to go. Well, what are you going to do? Export it? You're going to send it to Mars? Venus? What are you going to do with the heat? It's the whole planet that's hot because of global heating, because of the greenhouse effect, because of burning all the fossil fuels. And we burn more fossil fuels now than we did in the past, including more this year than last year. So that's not going to change. So the planet gets hotter every year. Basically every day. And we're already primed to have the whole planet burn. And so it's going to burn. Now, how does the planet get set up to burn? Let's do some science stuff, okay? Climate change, which I don't talk about very often here on here. I insist on talking about the physics and not the presentation. The physics of this is global heating. Heat. Thermodynamics, if you like. Heat. Unbalanced heat. Causes, secondarily, climate change. Now, if you're a plant and you got roots, which plants do, and the roots, you're stuck where you are, and so the conditions were good for you as a plant at one time in your plant life, right? When you were a little tiny seed and you sprouted and you came up out of the ground and you looked around and said, yeah, I can do this. I got sunlight, I got rain, certain patterns of rain. There's a certain amount of moisture in the ground already. I'm just growing, but I already feel it. My little roots are moist, and so I can do this. And you grow. And you grow to be a big tree. And then you have seedlings of your own, right? You cast your seeds and they grow up. And it's all this big virtuous circle. And then climate change. Bang. Climate change. Caused by global heating. Climate change. And what does climate change look like to a plant? Well, the growing season gets longer. That's a good thing. But there's also maximum heat waves during that same growing season. And that's a bad thing. It's also possible that you'll have heat waves that actually affect soil moisture. That's a bad thing. And the climate change may mean that you don't get as much rain as you used to get, which is different than heat. You can have heat and rain almost at the same time. I've lived in places like that. But depending on what kind of climate change you get, you might have heat and drought. Okay? And so now when you're a seedling and you drop on the ground and you put down your roots, you find no moisture in the ground. You try to put your little head up and then you're putting it up into a heat wave and the rain doesn't come and that little seedling just shrivels up and dies. This is called recruitment. When a tree can put down a seed bed and those seeds can sprout, that's called recruitment. They're recruiting new individual plants into the forest or into the ecosystem. Recruitment. Well, recruitment then falls through the floor because the new seedlings don't find hospitable conditions. Then even the adult plants may find things somewhat inhospitable. They still require the same things. They require rain, and at certain times of the year even. And they can't tolerate a lot of heat. Some species just don't tolerate heat as well as others. A banana tree, the heat and the humidity doesn't bother it much, and maybe it'll even grow faster if it's hot. But a redwood or something growing in the boreal forest, which is a cold location, it's a cold forest, typified by snow and snowy winters and a lot of snow on the ground that takes a long time to melt, and then all the time it's melting it keeps the area cool, and there's a lot of water running off constantly because of the constant snow melt all year, and then that keeps repeating itself, and the plants that grow in that area are adapted to that. They expect things to be like that. Well, what global heating does is it changes the climate. So now because it's hot, you can't have snow, you get rain. Oh, you might even have torrential rains, which is not a good thing either, because torrential rains wash away the soil and wash away the seeds and unearth the small plants. So torrential rains are bad. There's no snow. That's also bad. And then there's heat. And so these species that are growing in the boreal forest, and boreal, by the way, just means northern. The Canadians didn't go and point to their forest and say, we shall call this the boreal forest, named after Prince Boreal, who our sovereign, King Boreal, who is our sovereign. We will name the forest in his honor. No, boreal means north. And there are boreal forests in Canada, Russia, Scandinavia, China, but they are cold adapted, and they are snow adapted. Even the branches on the trees are snow adapted. So when snow accumulates, the branches bend, the snow falls off, and they spring back. And that's why they grow the way they do. And climate change caused by global heating upsets all that. And so even the adult trees, which are, proud, majestic trees, they've been there for 80 years, 120 years, they start to suffer because they don't get the water they need, they don't get the cold they need. Then there's secondary effects in the boreal forest. So one of the things that's happening is that it's not cold enough during the winter. They're not having freezing winters. They should, but they're not because of global heating. The cold winters are not cold enough to freeze the pests. Normally, there's always pests, right? They eat the leaves, they eat the bark, but the winters are so cold, and there's so little food in the winter, it's just so cold that all the pests would freeze back and die. Now, the next year, they start over because there's always eggs and larvae hiding in the soil or hiding under the bark. And then when things get warmer, spring comes, it's the summer, then those organisms start going back to work. But at least they were saved, the trees were saved by the cold. And so that the organisms never really got ahead of things. But now it's so warm in the boreal forests, that's everywhere, that the insects survive year round. There may be a month or two when the adult insects just kind of hibernate a little bit, but they don't die. And then as soon as there's a warm day, I mean literally one day, then these adult insects, they find each other, they mate, they lay eggs, and then maybe there's a cold day after that, but they come right back out again. They're not freezing; it's just cold. They just hibernate a little bit, and then they come out. And so there's insect infestations are now attacking these boreal forests. Now, Donald Trump doesn't know that. He thinks that the reason it's burning is because you haven't hired enough landscapers. Well, he's a moron. And he's the stupidest man alive. So he doesn't understand that what's happening to the boreal forest is being eaten alive. And you could even tell him that. He'd be like, nah, that can't be true. You're just supposed to trim the brushes and rake the leaves and it'll be fine. He's dumb. And most Americans are dumb and wouldn't understand anything I'm saying. And don't believe it. But physics doesn't care what you believe or don't believe, or what aligns with your ideology, or what the Pope tells you, or what Donald Trump tells you, or anything else. Physics doesn't care about anything that the chimps think or believe or want to be true. Physics just does what physics does, and that includes the bark borers and the leaf eaters and all the things that are eating the seeds and everything else. And the boreal forest is dying in place. The recruitment has fallen through the floor. And then the existing trees are being attacked by climate change. The climate no longer supports their lifestyle. And also being attacked by insects that are not being killed by the freezing winters, because there are no freezing winters. And if you lived up there, you would know that. But you don't, so you don't know that. Climate change. And maybe if you're living up there in the boreal forest and the winters have become more moderate, maybe you're liking that. Maybe you're like, wow, we like this weather now. We used to be a real struggle living up here in the snow and the ice, and we have to be indoors for 3-4 weeks at a time. Snowed in, right? Snow piled up against the front door. Can't even open a window. Here we have to, and when that's over, there's hardly any snow on the ground. Hardly ever snows. When it does snow, it only lasts a day, and then it's gone. And you may be thinking, wow, we kind of like this. This is a change for the better. Climate change, 2 thumbs up. Would recommend, okay? Would come back. And so you're thinking, oh, this is great. And then the boreal forest catches on fire. Because the forest doesn't like it. And the forest is responding to it with something other than politics or economics. And it burns down. And it burns all the villages. And it runs everybody out of their homes. And it burns down their homes. And it destroys their businesses. And it renders them lifeless. And with no future. And they were celebrating the fact that it's not snowing quite so much, because for monkeys like us, we're more worried about the banana, the economics, right? And if the politicians are telling us, well, it doesn't snow anymore, so we longer work days and more productivity and a bit bigger GDP and more jobs, of course, more jobs, GDP, and bigger, better, faster, and then everything burns down. Everything burns down because the forests don't see it that way. We don't see it that way either. We're just not up for this, folks. We are not up for this task. And you're not going to hear from your leaders. You're not going to hear from these people that you are in a really bad place. You're not going to hear from them that the whole world is on fire. They're not going to tell you that. They're not going to tell you that this is due to climate change, that the boreal forest is on fire. And it's going to burn. They're not going to tell you that. And they're not going to tell you that this is due to global heating causing climate change. They're not going to tell you that. They know that. Oh, yes, they know that. That's their business to know that. But their other business is to make sure you don't, and you won't. And even though France is going to burn to the ground, and Oregon, and Washington, and British Columbia, and Donald Trump will be out there saying, you should be managing your forests with pruners, right? He'll be out there saying that, and the MAGA people will swing in their red hats, pruners, pruners, President Pruner, right? Swinging their red hats. Get after the Canadians. Send them a bunch of rakes. That'll be the next thing. Donald Trump probably stands at the border with a gold-plated rake, right? He'll be standing there at the border with a gold-plated rake, showing the Canadians, here's a rake in case you've never seen one. You can even have, I'll give you this right now if you want to come across the border and get it. Of course, if you cross the border, the ICE agents will arrest you and tase you and throw you in Gitmo. But here's a golden rake. I'll give you a rake, and you can rake your forest. And meantime, I'm going to hit you with 50% tariffs, if not 150%, because I'm a demagogue, and I got people swinging red hats, and I have to convince them that the golden rake is the solution to the Canadian wildfire problem. Meanwhile, physics doesn't care. Right? I mean, right? Does global heating care if Donald Trump has a golden rake that he's going to give to the Prime Minister of Canada? Does physics care about any of this stuff? And the chimps are just going to want their banana. And they're going to be running around trying to get the banana, and if there's fewer bananas, they'll fight over the bananas. And if there are no bananas, then they'll starve to death over the bananas. And then they'll never know that what happened to them was global heating. Because they can't be allowed to know what's happening to them. Now, the Europeans and the UK are a little more upfront about these things. They don't have the problem we have over here. They still have democratic establishments, and they still have independent media. And they talk about things. Oh, and they listen to their scientists, too. They respect their scientists. They respect intellectuals. You know, Europe, France, what we now call Germany, Italy, Spain, a lot of what we now call science and intellectual life came from these places. They celebrated learning. They celebrated science. You know, the U.S. at the time of the Renaissance, when all these other countries were celebrating science and discovery, the U.S. was just a slave backwater. People came to the U.S. to cut down all the trees and send them back to England. People came to the U.S. to grow tobacco, kill Indians and grow tobacco and send the tobacco back to England. People came to the U.S. to, make rum from sugar cane and send the rum back to the old world. They didn't come here to be intellectuals. They didn't come here to set up universities and study shit. They came here to make money, and it's still that way to this day. And that's why Donald Trump can say scientists have an agenda. They don't know what they're talking about. Physics isn't real. It's all a hoax. And he can get away with that because there's a bunch of people out in the crowd waving their red hats over their heads saying, that's what I want to hear. That's the truth as I know it. Get back to making tobacco and cutting down all the trees. And by the way, where did the slaves go? Still looking for that. Someone fix that problem. Okay? Red hat overhead like this. And meanwhile, over in Europe, in the UK, they're sitting down having serious discussions. Oh, we're on fire, boys and girls. I don't have to tell you that. Our climate scientists have been telling us that you're going to burn. And they were telling us maybe we had 50 years or 100 years. Well, they were wrong. It's been 10 years, technically 11. And they were right about the burning part. They got that part right. We'll forgive them for not understanding the timeline, but they got the burning part absolutely spot on. And so here we are. We're burning. Oh, what should we do? That's the conversation they're having. It's not going to do them any good. Even though they still have a scientific culture, and they still have an intellectual culture, and they still celebrate these things, and they still have museums to natural history, and they still have universities that teach these topics, and the people who know these topics are revered and are invited into the community to speak and to educate. Whereas over here, we don't do that at all. We throw these people in prison. But over there, but it didn't save them over there. France, the beating heart of European culture. I mean, Okay, the Germans don't want to hear that, and that's fine. I understand that. The Germans are the beating heart of something else, but that's also equally super important, okay? And the Italians don't want to hear it. The Italians can be the beating heart and geopolitical center of something else, and it's a very important thing. But here in France, I'm not there. Over there in France, where they are the beating heart of the Renaissance, which is, I think, a French word? Renaissance? Is that the proper pronunciation? French people, straighten me up. The Renaissance, which means rebirth. Yeah, that's French, okay? And so let's let that heart beat in Paris, shall we? They're on fire. They're on fire. And all of their dedication to intellectual pursuit and science and clarity and honesty, intellectual honesty, which I will give them credit for, didn't do them any good. It didn't. Because that's not sufficient. And the fact that America doesn't have intellectual honesty, and America doesn't have a proud tradition of science and literacy and intellectual pursuit. America doesn't have those things. America's also going to burn. But the French are also going to burn. And everyone's going to burn, because knowing that you're going to burn and understanding why you're going to burn doesn't stop you from burning. I wish that it did. I wish that was sufficient, but it's not. 11 years ago, 2015, every nation of the world, there may have been one exception, nearly every nation of the world signed the Paris Climate Accords. The Paris Climate Accords explicitly recognized that climate change was a threat to civilization and to the environment, and that the signatories, again, all but one of the nations of the world, the signatories to the Paris Climate Accords were going to do their utmost to try and steer civilization away from the precipice. And the precipice was runaway global heating, catastrophic global heating. And, they thought they had decades, maybe even a century. Some people were saying, the year 2100. And that's when shit really gets weird, real, is the year 2100. So up until the year 2100, we should be okay. Right? I mean, we have to do some things. It's going to take us a long time to do these things anyway. So let's give ourselves some runway. Let's get started. Let's do the easy things first, and then we'll do the difficult things later. Ha, that's very funny. Yeah, you're fooling yourself. You weren't fooling me. And there's a lot of other scientists that weren't fooled either. Oh, by the way, just from the language, we weren't fooled. I mean, thank you for writing it, and thank you for signing it, and, golf clap. But the scientists of the world were looking at that and going, yeah, if this is the best you can come up with, this ain't good enough. And now we're seeing, not by the year 2100, we're seeing by the year 2026 that it wasn't good enough. And they didn't even try to implement what they signed on to in the year 2015. Never even tried. I mean, some people did. All across Europe, there were small efforts to try and nibble at the edges of this a little bit. And at the same time, trying to avoid economic losses, trying to avoid high prices, trying to avoid job losses, trying to keep their GDP growing, right? Yeah, that's economics. So trying to keep the economists happy, and trying to keep the politicians happy, and trying to keep the laborers happy, the workers, right? Because they don't want inflation, they don't want expensive goods, they don't want expensive fuels. Nobody really wants what had to be done. And since nobody wanted that, there was nobody saying we have to do this, except the scientists, and nobody cares about them. And now the world is on fire, and it's going to stay on fire. And all the things that people were trying to avoid will now be thrust upon them without their consent. And I don't mean thrust upon them by the governments, who are now going to demand fuel rationing, and demand you not get air conditioning, and demand we have PSPSs, and demand that you can't have a barbecue in your backyard, and demand that you don't go here and you don't go there, and you only drive on every other day. And it's not going to be the government's doing that. They're not going to do any of those things. All the things I just mentioned, they're not going to do those. Except here in California, we have the PSPS, Public Safety Power Shutoff. And other nations might adopt public safety power shutoffs. But remember, the point of a PSPS implementation is to strip away civilization from you for a day or 3, so that you can't do stupid shit. Does it work? I don't know. It's all they can do, because people can't change. And governments can't change, and economists can't change, and unfortunately, physics can't change. So this is the collision of great forces, right? But guess who wins? Guess who wins? Who always wins? Physics. Because physics is reality, and politics and economics and GDP and jobs and money and finances and freedoms and all that, none of that's real. Well, that's all fake. We made that up. We made up those words, we made up those concerns, we made up those focuses, we patterned our governments around those things. We didn't even have these things even 500 years ago. We didn't have these things. Now we do. But we made it up. And now we can't get out of that. So physics is coming along and saying, oh, you're worried about your GDP and you're worried about your price of gas? Uh-huh, yeah, I see that. Yeah, whatever. Burn. Just burn. You can worry about your GDP later. Right now, I'm physics. I'm here to burn some shit. Okay, I'm going to burn this and this and this. And wow, that looks good. I'm going to burn that too. And this city, this village, yeah, burn it. Okay, and physics is just going to burn everything. Because what else is it going to do? What else can it do? Gravity just does what gravity does. And gravity is a instance of physics, and fire is another thing. It just does what it does. There's a fuel source. The conditions are correct for combustion. Then there's a spark, probably by a human doing something stupid. And then you have a fire. And then the fire grows. And there's not enough firefighters to put it out. And then there's a wind. And then there's a pyrocumulonimbus, a weather phenomenon. And then there's a spotting. The fire gets so big that it just jumps. It sends burning branches into the air because the wind is so strong. It sends burning branches into the air, and they land in some community someplace else. And if there isn't someone standing right there with a hose, put it out. Okay. If that doesn't happen, then you have another fire. It's called spotting, and you can spot the community is over if the fire is violent enough. And there's so much violence in these storms that come from these fires. And there's so much violence in the fire. And there's so many emergent behaviors that firefighters are now saying things like, we've never seen a fire like that. Now, you may say, what a bunch of pansies. What a bunch of pussies. No, they're not. They're professionals. And if a professional comes out of a firefight and he's covered with soot and his eyes are big like this and he's exhausted and his hands are trembling, he says to you, I have never seen a fire like that. I got to sit down. I have never seen a fire like that. I've never fought a fire like that. That fire was crazy. That fire acted like it was alive. That fire seemed like have a mind of its own. And these are things we've been hearing from firefighters. You can go look it up if you want. And they come out of these fires, and they have seen religion, all right? And what they have seen is violence. Yep. Violence. These fires are violent. And you think you can go out there with your garden hose and you'll just spray your front yard. As the fires come in, the flames come in, you'll just spray. No, they're 200-foot walls of flame pushed by winds of 60, 80 miles an hour. Violent fires. And the firefighters have to run away. And it just burns. You can't fight it. Now, they were showing pictures in the recent fires. You get to see it again, but they were showing pictures back with the Pacific Palisades, where the fire truck showed up. There was a house or several on fire, and they run out their hose and they point the hose right at the house, and they turn the water on, and the water comes 3 feet out of the end of the hose, and the wind is so strong that it blows it back in their face. You can't fight that fire. Well, you could if you got there earlier. You could if you had more water. You could if you weren't so woke. You could fight that fire if you weren't such a woke pussy. No, the water comes 3 feet out of the end of the fire hose and it just blows back in your face. You can't fight that fire. You don't have the tools. And the tools you had before, they used to work for fires. They don't work with these fires because these fires are violent. You see? They're violent. And we're not going to fight these fires. There are going to be fires that are burning right now in the boreal forest, and including even Washington and Oregon, that are going to burn until they burn themselves out, or until winter comes. And God help us, it rains. Pray for rain. That'll put the fires out. until next summer when things dry out in the heat, because global heating is real. It has nowhere to go. It's going to come right back, and it'll dry the trees out. And then the next time someone goes up there and does a stupid chimp thing with fire, driving their car, and the car catches on fire, they drive off the road, and they're up there barbecuing in their favorite campsite. They knock the barbecue over, and the fire spreads across the ground. And when people start going up into these areas and doing their stupid thing because they're stupid people and they don't understand that the situation has changed, it's all going to start all over again. And then you're going to have to pray for rain and wait for the next winter to come, which might be 8 months away, 6 months away. And that's how we're going to deal with this now. And in the meantime, if you're paying any attention to what I'm saying, you're going to start to get a picture that everything's going to burn. Not all at once, not all in 1 year. It'll take several years. Everything's going to burn. And right now in Madrid, the fires, which are out of control and which cannot be fought with the tools we now have, are in this Madrid suburbs. And suburbs burn. They burn like matchwood. And when the fire gets into the suburbs will burn, as well as the cars and the trailers and the people and the dogs and the pets and everything else. The fire's going to come through there burning, and it's going to head for Madrid. Now, one of these days, we're going to lose a major city. Bordeaux in France is like on the doorstep. I haven't heard that they're evacuating Bordeaux in France, but they're looking at it and they're saying, well, we're not fighting these fires. And it's heading for the Bordeaux region of France, and there's a lot of fuel. And maybe something changes. Maybe they get rain. Maybe the winds die down. Maybe the winds blow from the other direction, blow the fire back into its own ashes. That's the thing. And maybe there's a miracle, or maybe there isn't. And if all you've got is waiting for a miracle like rain or the winds to shift, then you got nothing. You have nothing. You got nothing. And right now, we have nothing. And it's because of global heating. And it's not because the Canadians didn't prune their shrubs and rake their understory with the golden rake that Donald Trump gave them, right? It's not because of that, although that's what he'll tell you. And that's what even some of the Canadians will believe, because they don't want to believe the alternative, which is that they're fucked. They'd rather say, we have control over this. We just need a rake. I heard Donald Trump is going to send rakes. So let's just get the rakes from Donald Trump. Let's go into a forest and rake the leaves. Not that they are going to do that personally, right? They just want a project to rake the forest and prune the shrubs, right? You know, the president prune, and they're going to get in there and they're going to prune the shrubs and they're going to do the thing. They don't want to do that. They don't know who's going to do that. They don't know where the money is going to come from to do that. But they have a narrative. This is part of narrative warfare, where our narrative is, all we need to do is rake and prune, and we're going to do these things someday, somehow. Somebody will, not me, but somebody, some mythical somebody, and you know, we'll do all the things, and that'll stop the fires, and it won't. Because that's not what's causing the fires. What's causing the fire is global heating. Killing the trees, making them suitable fuel, and then some idiot, or even just a dry lightning storm comes by and sets it all on fire. And it burns again. And then it burns again. And then it burns again. And they'll still be talking about, well, we need pruning. Okay? Raking. If we just had somebody, some person, retired people, raking, pruning the trees. If we just did that, then all this would go away. And it can't possibly. Because that's not the problem. It's global heating. And everything's going to burn. And even if people woke up tomorrow morning and had some sort of epiphany, some switch got turned on or something clicked, and they all woke up tomorrow and they said, okay, let's do this. Then the thing they would have to do would destroy civilization. And even when they did that, it wouldn't stop the fires. Now, a PSPS, public safety power shutoff, by draining away civilization, can, the hope is, stop people from doing stupid shit, setting the place on fire. And so the other way you can drain away civilization is not temporarily with the PSPS, where you could just collapse the economy. You could just shut off the fossil fuels. You could end the jobs, the driving and the flying and the moving of goods, the manufacturing and the money flow and the jobs. You could just end all that. And when people are stuck at home and their biggest concern is growing food, and they're in their backyard growing food, well, they're not having a barbecue, and they're not driving a rickety old car up into the forest and having it get set on fire. And they're not throwing a cigarette on the ground because they haven't smoked a cigarette for 6 months because they can't find them. They can't afford them. So all the normal things that they would do that would be stupid, that would cause all these fires, that then Donald Trump says you need to pruning, okay? If you drained away enough civilization, including cigarettes and gasoline, you could stop some of these fires. Maybe. But the conditions are still there. And if anything happens, just one person with one cigarette that he found, in the back and trunk of his car, he got one cigarette that he found in the trunk of his car, hasn't had a cigarette for 6 months, and his hands are shaking, and his cigarette in his lips, and light the cigarette, and he's so nervous about lighting the cigarette because he hasn't had one for 6 months, lighting the cigarette, and then he burns his fingers with the match, he drops the match, and catches the whole world on fucking fire. Because one stupid moron found one fucking cigarette in the back of his old jalopy car, had one match, went somewhere where no one could see, had his cigarette, and set the world on fire. I mean, that's all it takes, right? One moron with a match. Oh, and you can have ideologues with a match. Some of these people are going to lose their freaking minds. And they're going to say, this global heating, this is nothing. And then, because they're psychotic, they abreact. And so they go out into the forest and they say, let me show you what it takes to burn a forest. If you think it's global heating, you think it's fossil fuel consumption and global heating and the greenhouse effect, all that's a hoax. Let me show you how to set fire to a forest. And he takes out his match and he flicks it and he throws it into the brush and he walks away. And they say, well, why would someone do that? People do that every day. Every single day, arsonists do that. Why do they do that? Because they're psychotic. And global heating, combined with no driving, no flying, no manufacturing, no movement of goods, no movement of money, no jobs. Global heating combined with all that is going to drive people insane. And they're going to act out in insane manner. And they will deliberately set the world on fire to prove a point. Don't ask me what that point is. And they can't even tell you because they're unhinged. So not only will the world burn because it's set up to burn, and that cannot be changed. It will burn because people lose their cotton-picking minds. With what? Regret? Guilt? There's no future for their children because they couldn't stop driving and flying and getting a latte at Starbucks. And now their children have no future. And so they go out and they set the forest on fire. I mean, that doesn't make any sense, right? None of this makes sense to me. I've been watching this since the early 90s. I watched An Inconvenient Truth. I watched them sign the Paris Climate Accords. None of this makes sense to me. It's so obvious to me what has to happen. And I won't be surprised when some broken, unemployed, guy who's at the end of his rope and he's angry and he just saw a YouTube video about it's all a hoax and then the forests don't really burn. It's just there's no forest anywhere burning and global heating and none of this happened and it's all been a hoax. It's all fear mongering and it's all AI slop and he's going to go out and say, let me prove it. Let me prove it to you. He's going to light a match and throw it in the brush because he's lost his cotton picking mind. And he wants to prove, no one has pruned this forest. No one has raked this forest. And I'm going to prove to you that that's the problem. And then, and then he throws a match down and it all burns. And if that sounds unhinged to you, it's because he's lost his mind. And most people have. And the few that have not shortly will when they figure out that the whole world is going to burn and it's their fault. Because that is where we're headed, folks. That's where we are. It's all going to burn. It's all burning now. And if you had that thought that there's a lot of things on fire, I wonder if that's a thing. Yeah, okay, that's a thing. And you're going to get more of that. In fact, you're going to get more of that this year because El Nino. Oh, Lordy. Lordy. Lord have mercy, because this only gets worse. This year it gets worse. Oh, all of this? Oh, this is just a preview of coming attractions, baby. And what are those attractions going to look like? I don't even know. We're off the edge of the map now, people. We're off the map, and it's not It's not easy to predict where we go from here. Well, except that it gets worse. And maybe even it sweeps up more of civilization to burn. And we may see major cities in America and Canada, I would say America and Canada, burn at some point. Madrid, Spain, it's right there, folks. Get out your garden hoses because, man, it's right there. And Bordeaux in France, it's right there. It's right there on your doorstep. Okay? Get out there with your garden hose. Do what you can do because it's going to burn. Probably. And if it doesn't burn this month, it might burn next month because nothing has changed next month. And the month after that, and the month after that, and the year after this, and the year after that. And we keep burning fossil fuels, and the world keeps getting hotter because global heating is physics, and it just never gets better. It only gets worse. And then finally, the whole world is on fire. And it keeps burning until there's no fuel. Because that's how you put out a fire. When there's nothing else to do. It just burns. I don't know what to tell you. I'm just telling you the truth. That's how it works. It may take a few years. It may take a few years for everything to burn. A few years. But I think 5 years from now, 2031, we'll look back and we'll say, yeah, everything burned. All the easy stuff and then even some of the hard stuff. Cities, suburbs, manufacturing regions, a lot of it burned. All the easy stuff, the forests, the marshes, the grasslands, the crops, right? All the easy, obvious stuff, and it all burned. Yeah, it really did. And then the harder stuff, the suburbs, cities, manufacturing hubs, people, even the hard stuff, finally got a chance. It was in line, finally got its chance, and that burned too. Watch the news, and above all, be situationally aware. When these fires come to your community, they will blow through your community like a firestorm. No one will understand that. The people who survived the Second World War can tell you stories about firestorms caused by war. Those people are all gone now. So we can't turn to them and say, you were in a firestorm, weren't you? Tell me about that. You'd have to go find documentaries. Probably. You can still find them. Maybe not. Ooh, what if they've been taken down? Oh. That's the thing. What if all the documentaries about the firestorms in the Second World War are taken down? Okay. That's the thing. And what if eventually you don't even get the news about all this stuff that's burning just in real time? What if they just stop carrying it? Well, when it comes to your community, you're not going to get any warning. You might not even get a siren. You might not even get a text message. They may simply say, it's a hoax, never happened. These people didn't do anything. They didn't do the raking. They didn't do the pruning. So, fuck them. We don't care. It's not caused by global heating because global heating is a hoax. And, whatever, can't save these people, not going to save these people. Fires are everywhere, but that's not even happening. There's no fires anywhere. And when it comes for your community, you just have to be ready to get out. And you have to know what that means. And it doesn't mean waking up at 2 o'clock in the morning, trying to find your pills, and trying to find the cat, and trying to find everything else, and get it all in the car, and then the cat's gone again. It doesn't mean that, okay? It means you understand that you're vulnerable, that you can burn, that people have burned before. And you understand that's a thing. And then the fire is on the ridge. And you look up there on the ridge, and you know the wind is blowing, and you're thinking, that fire could come off that ridge into my backyard in an hour. And if they're telling you it's going to take 6, cut it in half or maybe even to a quarter. If they're telling you you've got till tomorrow to evacuate, you've got 4 hours to evacuate. It's going to take you 4 hours just to get your life together to evacuate because you've never done that. So what do they tell you? They tell you have a go bag, have an actual bag that you can grab. And what does it have in it? It has your marriage certificate, your birth certificate, your house mortgage or a copy of these things. If just a copy is a good start. Medications, a first aid kit, food, of course, and bottled water. You may even have more than one bag. You may have 3 or 4 bags. And the key is that you don't have to go looking. if you're looking for the cat. If you can't find the cat, say goodbye to the cat, okay? And then you have to grab your bags, throw them in the car, throw the kids in the car, throw the wife in the car, and the spouse, and get down the road. And what you're hoping for is that you're first. Because what will happen otherwise is that somebody who's not prepared, somebody who doesn't have the mental capacity, they get on the road ahead of you. And then when the bad thing comes, the smoke crosses the road, or the sparks, or whatever, or the power goes out and the traffic light fails, and they don't know what to do if there's no traffic light. Where's the green? Where it's not turning green, and they sit there in the middle of the road, in the middle of the intersection, because they're already having a heart attack. And the green, where's the green? I don't know what to do. There's no green. And you're sitting there behind them, honking your horn, and they're about to have a heart attack. Green! I won't go until it's green. And that's what you're going to be. And you're hoping to avoid that. And you got your go bag, and you get it in the car, and you get the cars, and you give up on the cat, and you have it all in the car, and then you get out the road, and you're hoping that guy isn't sitting there, green, where's the green light? Okay? And that's how you survive. And then you're the next town over, and you're watching your town burn, and the helicopters flying over your community, doing the thing they do. They're great at reporting after the fact. Oh, this is going to have lots of eyeballs. We're going to be able to sell lots of ads. Let's get the helicopter up there. We're going to fly over this fire and take lots of pictures, okay? We love these things. They won't tell you it's coming, but they'll definitely get up there with their cameras, and they'll videotape this, and they'll sell lots of ads of your house burning down and your entire community, and all those people who are sit there at the light because the light won't green. Where's the green? They won't. Well, the light didn't change, so they're sitting there at the intersection. Now the cars are on fire, and then all the bodies are on fire, and you got out early, and you're the next town over, and you're watching all this on your cell phone. And that's your life now. That is your life now. That's not your life 6 months from now or 6 years from now. We are on fire. And these communities are going to burn. And people are going to try to get out at the last minute and without warnings. And no one's going to tell them because no one wants to panic. And you're going to have to panic. You're going to have to be prepared, and you have to do the thing. That's your job. Except I hear that England is running out of water. So some of us are already in a polycrisis. That's what I have today. And was that scary? It was meant to be scary. That was meant to be scary. Watch the news. Scary news. Take it seriously. It's scary. And, of course, it never goes away. It only gets worse. And the only time it stops, the only time it stops is when everything has burned. Past tense. And there's no fuel. Think about it. Think about your situation. Think about what's happening to the world. Take it seriously. And when it comes for you, my advice to you is, don't die.